to be cast, they should not have been allowed to cast their vote because they did not follow the handbook policies. So according to the handbook, these votes are also illegal and should not have been, should not have happened. Despite this opposition in the department and despite these violations, I received the majority vote for tenure in my department. And as I mentioned previously, these department faculty were not alone in their opposition towards me or in violating the rules of my tenure procedure. The dean exploited and joined this opposition. When he received the letter from my department recommending me for tenure based on me having met the criteria, the dean actually demanded a separate letter from the chair of my department, who he knew opposed my tenure. He said that if he was not provided with that letter from the chair, he would return my tenure file to the department until he received that letter. This is also a violation of established handbook procedures because, according to the faculty handbook, the dean should not interfere in the department tenure review. It explicitly states the dean must not communicate the dean's judgment on tenure and or promotion to the personnel committee until the committee submits its recommendation. Then it's closed in the department. That did not happen here. Another faculty member from the member of the Sociology, Tenure and Promotion Committee wrote a letter about this illegal chair's letter to the provost to point out that this chair's letter is not in accordance with the guidelines, that it should not have been written at all. And the reason, the dean felt it necessary to ask for this letter, even if he had to break the rules to get it, it became clear immediately. He based his recommendation against me, against my tenure, solely on the argument from the negative chair's letter. So what the dean did is, he based his own recommendation on that negative chair's letter. He closed his eyes for all the other positive letters in my file, even from the majority of my department. It had no place. Even from the external reviewers, any letter. This chair's letter, by the way, is the same one which I described, about not being able to rebut. So, because I didn't even know that it existed until I saw the dean's recommendation. That is where I discovered it. But how did I discover that there was a negative chair's letter? When I received the dean's negative recommendation and I read in the first line a reference to the negative chair's recommendation, it shocked me because I had not known about the existence of such a letter. So in his denial, and I can actually read the quote from the dean, he writes, based upon the bare majority positive recommendations of the Sociology Department's tenure faculty, voting 4-3 in favor of tenure and promotion to associate professor, the negative recommendation of department chair, and of my own thorough review of the file materials presented in support of these recommendations, I regretfully recommend that since the candidate's file does not present sufficient evidence of meeting the college's criteria for tenure and promotion to associate professor, my recommendation is negative. So that is the line he wrote. The dean does not provide evidence that I have not met the criteria for tenure and promotion. Since the dean had aligned himself with a biased opposition in my department, and instead of addressing their bias and correcting their violations, brought his own biases and violations into my tenure process, at this point I appealed all the violations of my tenure process to the Faculty Personnel Appeals Committee, the FPAC. After approximately less than 1 month of deliberations, the FPAC agreed with my claims that substantial violations had occurred and that the faculty and the dean had acted in violation of the faculty handbook policies. I finally thought that my situation would be addressed when the FPAC decided to send my file to the provost to remedy all these violations. The provost is the person who works directly under the president of the college. He conducted his independent review of my file. He recognized all the violations to my tenure file. But instead of granting me tenure, his solution was to extend my tenure for another 2 years. I strongly opposed this solution. I have a lot of email messages in my correspondence with this provost in rejecting his offer to extend my tenure, which all will be posted on my blog for people to read. Seeing how I had met the criteria for tenure and all of these procedural violations have been officially acknowledged, I demanded he recommend me for tenure immediately and direct the higher levels of the tenure process to ignore the dean's recommendation against me. The provost then said he would like me to produce more scholarship, even though my department and the external reviewers had strongly assessed that I had met the criteria for scholarship. The provost persisted in his demand, and I only agreed to the 2 years postponement of my tenure because this was all he would offer. And he promised he would oversee my tenure process the next time. And he said that this was his final offer. He also promised to set up a meeting with the college council, the dean, and the sociology tenure and promotion committee to discuss the violations in my tenure and prevent a repeat in the future. I requested the provost then to prohibit the 3 faculty who had been involved in the violations and the dean from future participation in my tenure review. Of those 4 individuals, the provost only agreed to prohibit 2 faculty members. He did not remove the dean and the department chair from the new tenure process. So, while I did not receive total or immediate results from the provost, it did seem that my next tenure review would be fair and would thus result in me getting approved for tenure at every level. But guess what happened next? The provost left. He left before the measures he had promised to take were all implemented. He resigned from his job before my new tenure review had started, and the meeting he had planned with the department and the dean never took place. The letter from the provost, the formal letter, is also on the table. You can read it. There's an email attached to it. When the provost